So today I'm going to be showing you how to make these beautiful tartan roses out of wafer paper and use the icing sheets on the cake. I'm going to print our background for the roses that we're going to do, and I have chosen a tartan. You'll see this come out now through my Edible Printer, which is from EPS, and it is a Canon printer there. So you can see my sheets going through. I'm doing front and back with the guide on one side and then plain on the back. So we're just going to cut those out there. And these are the small, medium and large petals that we need. In the small size, we're going to use 5. I am going to get some water and really wipe it off with a bit of kitchen roll. You don't want this sopping wet. And I'm just going to go around each of those 5 there very gently. Now I'm using a cocktail stick then, and what we're going to do is we're just going to roll those up, and it'll roll really easily with that little bit of water we've put on. Now if it sticks, that means that you added far too much, so you really want to dry that brush off and remove any of the excess water. So once you've done all 5 just there, we will be ready to pop them onto our polystyrene bud. So I'm using one of the small polystyrene buds. All the measurements will be in the bottom comments. So I'm going to add on my edible glue just here. Love this fractal one because you get the brush with it and it just makes my life easier. I haven't got to wash up all my brushes. So take that curved petal just there, and we're just going to pop it on. Now because it's curved, it almost clings to the shape of that polystyrene bud, which is fantastic. Then as you're pushing it around there, because there's glue, it will stick and it will almost soften a bit more. So pinch the top bit together. May not stick, that's not a problem. What you don't want to see is the polystyrene all the way through. So the tighter you can get this top part, the more realistic your rose is going to be. Take the second one, and again it's going to try gripping, and again just arch it back over the top of the other 2. So you've got 2 almost like a Venus flytrap just kind of sticking together. Push them in a little bit more, try and secure that top bit up as best you can. Now we're going to use 3 interlocking. So when you look at the top of a rose, it almost looks as if they concertina all the way round. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So we've popped the one on, and then we're going to put the next one and leave it just on the inside there. And then we're going to do the same with the last one. And the last one overlaps the first one. Let's get our glue, and then on the bits that we need to stick down, we're just going to pop some glue on the inside, and then when we stick them, now we don't stick them over, we use our finger kind of almost in a downward motion. Can you see there? Just popping that first one in, and you see I've just gone round in that motion, and that has created that top part. It's brilliant. Right, let's go on to the medium. Again, we're going on to 5. So we're going to put those all flat together, and then we're going to roll them together. Now, because there's such a batch of them, this gives it extra stability. If you do it one at a time, then it won't work as well. Now, I'm not using any water with these. Then I'm coming in on a downward motion on the side parts so that they do follow that kind of pattern of the bud. So again, moving down and across, and then this will create the effect that we just had but on a bigger petal. See that just there? It almost looks like it's giving you that complete design on the petal, and this is going to be an amazing structure. So now we're going to separate them all out and start to use them one by one. See those shapes and the way it stays. Okay, we need to put the glue on the other petals that we put on. Now never go near the top, we're always only sticking to the bottom parts because they're fine. Find the crease between the 2, and where that one just folds in, we're just going to pop that on. So you've already see there that because it's coming over in that way, this is going to give that concertina effect that we need. I just had to touch that and it just stuck in. So straight then in with the next one, that just slots in again. Try and keep them around about the same height, and then slot that one in again. Take a little bit of the glue on the first one. So you've got 2 on there at the moment. You're gluing along the first one on the inside, and in that downward motion, we're just going to stick that over. We're going to repeat that for each one. So we've got petal 2, and number 3 is just slotting in there again. You can make this as tight or as loose as you want. So the further in you slot, it'll look a lot tighter. More you come out, it won't look as tight. So petal number 2, we are just gluing. But when you're very close into the middle, you do need it fairly tight. Downward motion again, and then we're going to repeat with number 4 and then number 5. So again, in with number 4, slot that in just there, and then we're going to take number 3 and we're going to glue that. Now I had glued that slightly and it was fine. Now we're going in with petal number 5, and we are going to secure petal 5 by actually gluing petal 5 on this one, and then we're going to go around and just make sure everything's happy. Anything that's not completely stuck, we can just add a tiny little bit more glue. Now as you can see just there, we've got that really lovely swirling motion through the middle, but the ends, because they're rigid, are sticking right out, so we need to do something about that. So we're going to take the glue and we are just going to wet all around the bottom. You could use water if you want, but I quite happy. I've got the glue there, I've got the brush there, and I'm quite happy to do that. So we've gone over the top, then we're coming into the polystyrene on the bottom behind as well. Use your finger and you can see there, look how that just falls straight into the shape and it creates that petal shape lovely. None of the middle up has been touched by any glue, so it's all staying rigid. So now we're going to go on to the second batch of the middle size. We're going to do the very same thing. We're going to fold them all over together again. Always make sure your hands are really dry. If you get anything near them, you're going to stick all the pieces together and you've lost them then. So we're coming back over with that sweeping in motion, and we're going to do the same the other side. I just did this on this top overhead so that you can see there the difference looking down. So once they are done, which they are, we're going to push them straight in just like we did before. And then we're going to count those out, and there'll be 5 of those. So far we have used 5 small, and then 5 medium, and then another 5 medium. And then we're going to apply these just because we want that concertina to look a little bit more realistic. We're going to let these come out just a tad, so we're not going to go in as tight. So find your crease as you would, and then your fold over, and we are just going to do what we did before. Only stick towards the middle, don't touch that other side. If by any chance it does slightly stick as you go to concertina in, then just get your brush with your glue and just ease it away and it will come away. So in we go again there, but you can see I've kind of pushed it out slightly, so we do have a little bit more of a gap there. It's a bit more arched around the top, and I'm not pulling that as tight. I'm letting it lie looser. So that was number 1, stuck to number 2. We're going to go in with number 3. You can see there that's slightly sticking. I've just pushed that through and it broke it open. And then we're going to pop in number 3. Then we are going to stick number 2 at the back to number 3. Again, not pulling it too hard. We are letting that little gap appear around there. Back in then with number 4. I can't believe I'm remembering all these numbers here. And the same again, and we are going to stick that over. So I'm just holding this one. I'm showing you there's a different way if you wanted to hold it. If you've got the right positioning and you didn't want to put the glue on first, you can just hold it and slide the brush in. And then finally in with number 5 again, and let that then stick with number 4 across the top. So you can already see through the top here that it's all a lot looser. I'm going further down with the glue, so I'm not gluing so much of the top of the petal as we come across, and that is just giving that open look a little bit more. So onto the side part, and then just allow that just to hang out a little bit in places, and you start to get this more realistic look. If you can see that there, you can see it kind of looking like it's opening up. That's what we've done. So I'm quite happy with this. And then we're going to do that very same thing across that bottom part. Again, it's rigid, so we're just going to glue through the bottom part there, along the polystyrene and along the bottom, using our finger just to push it in. And then we are going to move on to the large. So with the large, we are going to be doing another 5 and 5. So we're going to do the very same thing as we did before. We're going to fold them over. Now, your choice here, I like to have the matte on the inside and then the shinier effect on the back because I find it picks up the print a lot better, but it's your choice. But try and stick to one. Don't have a matte on the outside and then a shiny on the outside because it's going to ruin the effect. Okay, you can see me like pushing in through the bottom a lot more, and then we're just going to cut a little section off and then go up about half a centimetre, maybe not even that, just slightly, because we are going to stick them together to create that bottom shape that we need for a realistic look along the bottom. So I'm doing this with both sides. You can see just taking that bottom bit off and then a slight cut up. So we are going to open all of these out. And then because I'm making more of that fold at the back, we're not doing these all together. So again, we've taken that water and we have completely dried the brush as much as we can off. And then we're just going and dabbing around the top. We're just dampening it off so that we can manipulate it. Okay. And then we're just going to roll. And this will roll really easily without the cracks just because of that really, really light, almost dry brush that we put across the back. There was enough water on it just to allow it to do this and not get it to stick. So if you don't want to use I would always recommend doing this with just plain white to start with, and not having any textured colouring on the back, because otherwise you'll be ruining what you've printed. Right, go in with a little bit of glue where we have cut through and then just stick those two together, and that is creating like a bowl effect along the bottom. And that's what we need to give it that kind of sharp bottom that a rose has. So we're going to do this with every one of the leaves. The more that you push it down, the harsher the lip will be. It's your choice what you create. So just do that with each and every one. I love this tartan. It is so lovely. There are so many different ways you can do this. And I am going to have some different backings on my website so that if you wanted to download or just buy them, then we can send those out to you. Okay, right. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, now I'm getting bored watching myself. I've tried not to cut too much of this out because I notice that when people cut them out, if you're trying to watch a full tutorial, it can be quite difficult. So I have left in as much as possible, but just make sure that you fast forward if you're bored. Right, so again, we put the glue on that bottom part, and then did you see there with that lip, I've tucked the lip under and then just placed this on, okay? And then we're just going to fold that one side over just like we have done before. So we'll stick that down, and that sits lovely underneath now without us having to create that. Right, so because we've got that lip, before we always slotted in, and that was fine because it would slot in, but because you've got the bottom parts that we've created, we now need to fold over the top. So instead of slotting in, we are just laying on top of one another, always going kind of halfway into the first petal and then coming across. So add on your glue and then add your third. It's almost where the second petal hits the bottom underneath is where the middle of this one should go. So if you can see, the second petal is in the middle of the third petal, and we're going to keep doing this all the way around. I'm showing you this from the bottom view so you can see how that is sticking underneath there. Now, if you wanted to add more and more layers, you could stick them a bit higher up. Instead of, I'm going very low to the bottom so that it fans out. But the more glue you put higher up, the more it's going to stick it closer, and it won't fan out as much. Right, so in with that last one, then you need to try and tuck that underneath because you always have to have that tucked in seamless effect. So I'm just using a bit of glue there just to push it in because it didn't really want to go in, and that will help. It's better than using your fingers because the brush is more delicate. And then we've just folded that over. So now we've got that complete concertina going all the way around. Any bits that are hanging out too much, just pop your brush in and just stick them down. And you can see how this is really coming to life now. So you see I've got the tighter bit in the middle, and then I've let this fan out. Like I said, you could have done that tighter if you'd have wanted to. On with the next 5, and we're going to do the very same thing. That dry brush just across those top parts there. Sped it up because I was getting bored. And we're going to do the same across the back. Now, because it's the larger, the end batch, I should say, of petals that we're going to put on, I'm doing this a lot tighter because they would fall back and the folds would be more defined. So I am going in with a little bit more detail on those ones. Then also, I've just come in through the bottom part, and then I am also just creating a little bit of texture through there so that they have got more of a point towards the bottom. And when I tuck those in, they become a lot more defined. So we are going to glue those together now, and you'll see the way it kind of just ripples in there, and it will give a neater look around the bottom of the wafer paper. So there we go. We have got our final outer petals that we're doing just here. So again, like I have said, just roll down fairly far with these ones. You don't have to just do side by side. You can do one right across the top. You can create them the way that you want. You can do one side that's maybe 70% over and the other one's kind of 30% over. Play about. They won't all look exactly the same. They roll in different ways, and just be creative with it and have a little play. Right, same thing again there. I've done the bottom part too, and we've stuck those together. And I'm just easing that just to create that shape. So I didn't show you the rest because you'd have fallen asleep. So now we're coming in that bottom part. We have put the glue all around the bottom, and now I'm not doing this one from the top because I literally want to make sure the bottom is completely covered. So again, don't forget these layers here where we have cupped the bottom, we go over the top, not slot in. So we're just doing this there, eyeballing down. Now you can keep flipping it over if you need to have a look, but this way you'll know that they're going on straight and also precisely, because you can see exactly what you're doing from the bottom. So keep going there all the way around, and then on that final one we are just going to have to lip it over again. If under, sorry, not over. So if it does crack it slightly, don't worry, we just need to get that in. So on this one, I think this one slightly ripped just there. It's not what you see underneath, it's more that flushed overlap that you need going the whole way round. So this still doesn't look, it's still a tiny bit rigid. So I'm going over with the glue, and then I'm going to manipulate that bottom part to give that lovely round effect that you'll get through the bottom of the rose. Just filling in those little gaps and then really pushing down with my finger just there. Now, with my polystyrene buds, I always use cocktail sticks because I think they're safer going into a cake. I don't like the wires as much, but I also do use my glue gun just to secure with a tiny, tiny piece. It doesn't go anywhere near the cake. Then flip it up and move the pieces around to give you the shape that you want. You can move some up, some down. Obviously, be careful because it's not quite dry. And there we have our rose. So that's our wafer paper rose, and that fits in with all the other ones that I've done. I have got 2 different sizes there. I've got a medium and large, and I've also got the template sheets in a medium and a large. So here now I'm using an icing sheet, and we are going to just flow this through for the rest of the cake. So to measure out, I'm just taking my ribbon and making sure that it's at the right length, and then I'm going to cut in to that ribbon just slightly, so a tiny little nick in the side, so that I can use the same piece of ribbon just to give me the dimensions for all of it. So that's going over the top of one of the sheets and seeing where I land, and then I'm cutting that out. This is brilliant because you've got lines coming all the way down. If you need to use a ruler, make sure you use a ruler, and just cut into that. You might need a couple of cuts just because you've got the plastic sheeting on the back. So pop the two together because you did need two. And then with the length of that ribbon as my guide, I'm going to cut them off. So we need something to stick. Now I find that water sticks immediately and it doesn't allow you to slide it around. So I use Crisco shortening Trex you can get as well. It's just a vegetable fat and that allows it to stick and it also allows it to slide so that you can play around with it. So that's the top part on. They go together really, really nicely once you've measured them out. And then I really thought that it didn't look quite right, so I had to put something on the bottom. So then I've got one white flower and then in come with my other ones that we've just created. Again, like I said, I much prefer using the cocktail stick. I really hope you've enjoyed this and any questions, pop them in the comments below.